You may be making a silent mistake in your garden right now without even realizing it. Because while you are watering your plants and trying to take care of your soil, something much deeper might be happening beneath the surface. Most people believe that plant growth depends mainly on how much water they give, how much fertilizer they buy, or how often they tend their garden beds. But what if the real key to stronger vegetables is not about feeding the plant directly? What if the most important thing you can do for your garden is actually maintaining the living ecosystem inside your soil? Soil is not just dirt. It is a complex living environment filled with microscopic organisms that work constantly to support plant life. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and countless unseen life forms interact inside healthy soil. These organisms help break down organic matter and transform it into nutrients that plant roots can absorb. When this biological network is damaged, plant growth often becomes weak, even if water and fertilizer are applied regularly. Many gardeners focus on the visible part of the plant while ignoring the invisible life beneath the surface that actually supports growth. Over the past decades, modern agriculture has increasingly relied on synthetic fertilizers to boost production. While these fertilizers can provide quick nutrient availability, excessive use can sometimes reduce soil microbial diversity. When soil organisms decline, nutrient cycling becomes less efficient. Plants may appear green for a short period, but long-term soil health may deteriorate. Sustainable gardening requires understanding that soil is not an inert medium, but a dynamic biological system that needs balance and stability. The most important concept you must remember is that plants do not directly eat fertilizer. Plants absorb nutrients that are processed and released through microbial and chemical interactions inside the soil. If the biological activity inside the soil is weak, nutrient absorption becomes less efficient regardless of how much fertilizer you apply. This is why some experienced gardeners observe that constant fertilization without soil regeneration eventually leads to declining productivity. Ancient farming traditions often focused more on soil vitality than on direct plant feeding. Historical agricultural communities developed methods that supported natural nutrient recycling. Organic matter decomposition played a central role in maintaining fertility. Fallen leaves, animal waste, and plant residues were allowed to break down naturally, creating a continuous biological nutrient supply. These systems worked because they respected the natural ecosystem of soil life, rather than trying to override it. Now let's talk about the idea that this video is based on. The concept of only one drop represents extreme biological concentration control rather than aggressive fertilization. The idea is not about applying large quantities of substance. It is about triggering a subtle biological signal inside the soil environment. One of the most controversial but historically discussed biological nutrient sources is human urine. Human urine contains nitrogenous compounds that are naturally produced as the body eliminates metabolic waste products. From a chemical perspective, urine contains urea, creatinine traces, and various dissolved minerals. When urea decomposes under proper microbial conditions, it can transform into ammonia and later into forms of nitrogen that plants may utilize. However, I must emphasize something very clearly and responsibly. Never apply urine directly to plants or soil without dilution. Fresh, undiluted urine can damage root systems and disrupt microbial balance due to high nitrogen concentration and salt content. The idea behind the one-drop system is not direct fertilization, but symbolic biological stimulation through heavy duct. If you're curious enough to experiment, safety and hygiene must be your priority. First, collect urine in a clean container. The urine should be fresh and free from contamination. Second, prepare a large volume of clean water. The dilution ratio is extremely important. Traditional experimental gardening discussions often suggest mixing a very small quantity of urine into 30 to 50 parts water, sometimes even more depending on plant sensitivity. The goal is to ensure that the final solution is biologically gentle rather than chemically aggressive. The reason dilution matters is because plants and soil microorganisms are extremely sensitive to sudden chemical shocks. High nitrogen concentration can burn root tissues and suppress beneficial microbial populations. The one-drop philosophy is based on minimal intervention rather than maximum input. When applying the solution, pour it slowly into the soil near the base of the plant. Avoid spraying or touching the leaves because foliage exposure can sometimes create unwanted chemical reactions under sunlight. Application frequency should be very limited. This is not a daily feeding method. Some experimental gardeners use such biological stimulants only occasionally, sometimes once every several weeks, depending on environmental conditions. After application, observation becomes the most important step. Gardening is not just about applying methods, but also about learning from plant responses. Watch the color of the leaves. Observe growth speed. Pay attention to stem strength and root behavior if possible. Healthy plants usually show gradual improvement rather than sudden explosive changes. If any negative reaction appears, such as leaf burning, abnormal yellowing, or wilting, stop immediately. Different plant species respond differently to biological stimulants. Climate also plays a huge role. Temperature, humidity, soil type, and sunlight intensity all influence results. Another fundamental component of this concept is organic matter preservation. Adding compost materials, decomposed branches, and natural mulch can significantly improve microbial habitat inside the soil. Organic matter acts like food storage for microorganisms. When microorganisms have enough organic substrate, they continue breaking down complex compounds into simpler nutrients available for plant roots. Some traditional agricultural systems believed in continuous soil regeneration rather than continuous soil extraction. Modern intensive farming sometimes focuses on maximizing immediate harvest output without considering long-term soil structure. When soil is repeatedly planted without regeneration cycles, microbial diversity may decline. This can gradually reduce productivity even if external fertilizer input remains constant. Water management is also extremely important. Many gardeners underestimate the negative impact of excessive watering. Roots require oxygen just as much as they require water. When soil becomes saturated with water for long periods, oxygen diffusion decreases and beneficial aerobic microorganisms struggle to survive. This condition can lead to root diseases and nutrient absorption problems. On the other hand, underwatering can also stress plants and reduce metabolic activity. The key is maintaining balanced soil moisture rather than extreme conditions. Soil should feel moist, but not waterlogged. Sunlight exposure is another critical factor. Vegetables generally require sufficient photosynthetic energy to produce carbohydrates necessary for growth. Without adequate light, even the best soil system cannot guarantee strong harvests. You should also remember that this method is not a miracle technique. Anyone promising instant massive harvests from a single solution is not speaking scientifically or responsibly. Real gardening success comes from combining multiple factors including soil biology, water balance, sunlight, genetic plant selection, and long-term care. The purpose of this video is not to encourage reckless experimentation, but to explore historical and biological perspectives on natural agriculture. You should always combine knowledge from multiple sources before applying any unconventional method. Some gardeners who experimented with highly diluted biological stimulants reported improvements in leaf coloration and vegetative expansion. However, scientific evidence regarding human urine use in gardening is still debated and results are highly variable. The important philosophical idea behind this concept is simplicity. Nature does not always operate through complexity. Sometimes the most stable biological systems are the simplest ones. Ecosystems function through balance rather than excessive intervention. If you are serious about improving your harvest, start thinking about your garden as a living organism rather than a mechanical production space. Your soil is not just storage for plants, it is a biological community that needs protection and nourishment. Focus on feeding the soil life rather than forcing plant growth. Maintain microbial diversity by adding organic materials periodically. Avoid excessive chemical disturbance. Respect natural decomposition cycles. Allow beneficial organisms to work continuously beneath the surface. Healthy soil tends to improve plant resistance to pests and environmental stress. Plants growing in biologically active soil often develop stronger root structures and more stable metabolic functions. Long-term agricultural sustainability depends on preserving soil ecosystems rather than exhausting them. Future gardening may depend less on commercial fertilizer consumption and more on biological understanding. The secret is not inside expensive agricultural products. Sometimes it is hidden inside forgotten natural principles that humans used thousands of years ago, before modern industrial farming became dominant. Perhaps the idea of a single drop represents something deeper than just a gardening technique. It represents the philosophy that small biological signals can sometimes influence complex living systems when applied with wisdom and patience. Remember that patience is essential in natural agriculture. Plants grow according to biological rhythm, not human urgency. If you are experimenting with your garden, always prioritize safety, hygiene, and environmental responsibility. And finally, always remember that the most productive gardens are not necessarily the ones that receive the most fertilizer, but the ones where soil life is allowed to thrive continuously. Because when soil life is strong, plants often grow stronger, almost naturally. Maybe the future of gardening is not about forcing nature to produce more. Maybe it is about learning how to cooperate with the living world inside the earth. If you enjoyed discovering this forgotten agricultural idea, consider supporting the channel, leaving a like, and continuing to explore natural cultivation secrets. Because there are still many mysteries hidden beneath the soil waiting to be understood.